Academy roof. Well, we can leave that for a little bit later. How about we talk a little first, give some intelligence reductions. I know you all know each other, at least partially, but sharing some more details would help make us a more well-refined team. Kakashi spoke up, diverting the conversation the way he wanted it to go before he dropped the bomb. He looked over his 3 new students, well, possible students at least. He didn't have much hope for them, not due to their skills or prowess in the shinobi arts, but from their personalities. He watched how they moved around one another, how they looked at the others, and decidedly did not like it. There was nothing too major, no active disdain that could have been present considering children and their tenderance, and ceased to be jealous and cruel. Sasuke appeared annoyed with Sakura's presence. No, that's not quite right. He was annoyed by her closeness to him and constantly open-mouthed, it seemed. From the eye rolls and general closed-off posture, he wasn't intelligence interested in conversing with his chattier teammate. Though from the few looks he cast over at Naruto, Kakashi was a little surprised but happy to see some admiration but rivalry burning in them. A good rival always pushed you to be better, but it should never develop as much as to sour your actual relationship with them. He concluded Sasuke was not as lost a cause as he had presumed he might be when it came to possible teamwork and fluidity in this group. Sakura was, as he had previously observed, talking Sasuke's ear off. She was scooted up right next to him and looked to have hearts in her eyes. She either didn't notice or didn't care that Sasuke was annoyed at her, which wasn't good. If she didn't care about his thoughts but continued to bother him, it didn't bode well for their future teamwork, the same being applied if she was too wound up in her talking to notice the person she was talking to was visibly frustrated by it. She had not once looked over to Naruto since sitting down and was a fair distance from him as well. She couldn't continue to ignore the presence of one of her teammates if this team were to pass his test. Though she didn't seem to hold any ill will to Naruto, perhaps other than his continual victories over Sasuke, but that was just petty and something she could easily get over. Kakashi hoped she could turn on her teamwork when in the field. She had some potential for a medic, and he would love to have a skilled one alongside him and his team. Lastly, he peeked over at Naruto. He wanted to sweat drop at the boy before him. He was lounged back leaning on his elbows with his legs extended and said in front of him. He had his eyes closed again. Perhaps they are sensitive, Kakashi mused. Sakura seemed to believe he was asleep, but he defiantly was not. He didn't even seem to be trying to act asleep as he kept sighing and looking over at his teammates as if to suggest he was annoyed at something, perhaps at Kakashi for stalling to build up tension and analyze them. Kakashi couldn't gauge much of value from his posture other than he was totally relaxed and confident. He appeared to dislike wasting time and waiting for others, which wasn't necessarily a terrible trait, as long as it didn't translate to his patience in dealing with shinobi activities like watching a target or dealing with clients, but it certainly wouldn't bode well for the boy if he passes with Kakashi as his sensei. He figured he'd need to observe Naruto in a different setting to get a better idea of him. So, we'll just start with basic intelligence reductions. Your name, a bit about you, a dream or goal, anything like that. He first intelligence ed at Sasuke to get them started. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I train to ensure I'm strong enough, stronger than anyone else so that I can achieve my dream. No, it's not a dream but a promise I made. I will kill someone and avenge my clan. I will ensure my clan rises to prosperity again after I've reclaimed its honor. Sasuke spoke darkly, his hands clasped, and face partially hidden behind them. He appeared to have gotten himself worked up during his speech, with his previous irritated expression having gave way to his focused but burning rage that came through in a glare. That left a bit of an impression on the team, having dimmed the mood a little. Sakura looked shocked at him before calming herself, but still decided to give him some space to avoid being on the receiving endurance of his anger, or perhaps it was out of a bit of respect she had for the pain Sasuke must have gone through. Kakashi wasn't surprised at the goal, or rather promise Sasuke had made to himself. It would make him a little bit hard to steer. Anyone who could direct Sasuke's hate or manipulate it could cause some damage, so he'd need to help the kid out a little. Naruto hadn't changed at all, likely having already known or suspected like Kakashi. Well, that's certainly a lofty goal. Kakashi spoke to ease the tension Sasuke had built a little bit before moving on. Right, what about you then? Pink one. Cha. Anyway, my name is Haruno Sakura. She peeked over to Sasuke and blushed at him before continuing. I enjoy looking after my hair and reading. My dream is to. She once again trailed off, this time not even finishing the thought or attempting to hide her squeal as she seen Sasuke. Kakashi had already understood Sakura, so nothing was really gained from her intelligence reduction. He only reconfirmed he would need to work hard with her. How intelligence arresting. Anyway, now you blondie. Kakashi sounded so utterly unenthusiastic at Sakura's intelligence reduction she actually felt a little embarrassed. This is seriously boring. I already knew Sasuke had anger issues and Sakura was a creepy stalker, and they already know that I'm incredible. Naruto spoke still without even looking up from his relaxed position. He earned a shout and annoyed grunt in response of his characterizations of his teammates and himself. So, what's the actual intelligence of this eye patch? My. Quite the detective. Kakashi decided to get to it. Well, I'm Hatake Kakashi. I don't do much, at least not something I'd be allowed to talk to you about, and I suppose I have some goals. But Naruto's right, the intelligence of this was to warm you up for the shock to come. You aren't technically shinobi yet. Kakashi revealed after a little wait to build suspense. He enjoyed the shock and surprise from his charges. Even Naruto peeked one of his eyes open to pay closer attention at the announcement. What do you mean? We passed the tests, right? Sakura was clearly feeling the pressure mounting up again. The possibility she would need more than just her knowledge she could rely on for the academy tests surely worried her. Yes, you did pass the academy tests. But they are not the only ones needed to truly become genin. Your chosen jonin in strength Uchter also gives his potential students a test to ensure they are people they want to train or that the kids are truly ready. You can either be failed outright and all return to the academy if the jonin deems it necessary, or maybe only one does. Kakashi looked over his genin for once appearing to them as a serious figure. He was slowly mounting pressure. Kakashi's test would revolve around teamwork. He would never train people who would abandon a comrade. If his teachings lead to such, he would have disgraced himself and everyone he had cared for and lost. So, he was trying to create tension within the group, while also dropping a few intelligence S at his criteria, namely the intelligence reductions Naruto had so brazenly disregarded, instead looking for something deeper with Kakashi. They were designed to breed a feeling of camaraderie and set them up to ignore his orders to abandon someone when the test would begin. But without that feeling amongst them, the pressure would build and they would lose their ability to analyze the scenario effectively. Even the most obvious liar bluff could fool someone who's panicked and strength-est. So, with all that said, join me at Training Ground 7 tomorrow at 9 AM. And a word of advice, don't eat breakfast tomorrow, you'll only throw it up after what I put you through. With his last piece of misdirection laid out, Kakashi vanished in a poof of smoke. Quote. Silence reigned over the rooftop as the three remaining mulled over their potential sensei's words. This might actually be quite intelligence arresting. I wonder what he'll have us do to prove ourselves worthy of his time. How frustrating. I was hoping we could jump right intelligence the exciting things. Naruto spoke up, breaking the silence. He's quite the manipulator, but to what endurance? What does he want us to do? He muttered so only he could hear his words, truly questioning what his sensei hoped for him to achieve with the maze of suggestions and traps he had laid out. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I want to take a nap, today's been boring. With that, Uzumaki Naruto also made his exit, leaving only a sharp gust of wind behind as if he was pulled away by some invisible force. Training Ground 7:12 PM the next day. Naruto watched as his potential sensei showed up 3 hours late and only offered an even worse excuse than last time to justify himself. The man was surely lazy and unpunctual, but Naruto didn't think that was all there was to it. More of these mind games. It's clear now he's trying to throw us off our game, to make sure we can't operate at full capacity both physically and mentally. So, what test have you conjured up for us, Mr. Eyepatch? Well, you're all here bright and early just as I in-strength UCTED, but enough with that, let us move on to your test. Kakashi spoke to the team. Naruto watched closely, observing both his teammates and the man who would be testing them. He noticed they appeared ragged and sluggish already, but they had done nothing but sit and complain while waiting around. I see, so they followed his in-strength actions not to eat as well. Naruto had ignored that particular in-strength action, believing it irrelevant but also assuming it was a trap laid out, even if at the time he didn't know for what purpose. Now it seemed clear Kakashi was trying to wear them down. Kakashi made a show of pulling out 2 golden bells held by red strengthing and dangling them in front of himself. Your goal is to steal these bells from me. You can achieve that in any way you see fit, but remember, come at me with intelligence and to kill, or you'll never even see them. You'll have until 2 p.m. so in 2 hours if you don't have a bell, you fail and you will be tied to a post while I eat in front of you. Naruto watched Sasuke and Sakura cringe at that, but he was more intelligence interested in the past criteria. Steal a bell from the hip of a Jonin, that's rough. I'm sure this man is someone quite special. His eye doesn't match the rest of his chakra and feels extremely powerful and potent. Well, it's likely a Sharingan if his aliases, the copy ninja, is anything to go by, plus it looks red. Naruto had briefly researched his sensei. Nothing major, just a little background knowledge you can get from public sources, but this man truly was well known. Sensei. You only have 2 bells, shouldn't there be 3? Sakura seemed to have gotten over herself and noticed Kakashi's ace in the hole. Well, as I mentioned yesterday, it's entirely up to the sensei's discretion who is passed and how many out of a possible graduate team. Personally, I only want 2 genin, so my test reflects that only 2 people can pass this test. One of you is guaranteed to fail. Sasuke and Sakura looked wholly taken aback before proclaiming the unfairness of this. Just because they had been given Kakashi one would fail. But Kakashi only said that the world was unfair. Genins died on missions, and he didn't want to take on 3 so he could ensure better training and protection. At his logical reasoning, Naruto watched his teammates eye the bells and subtly move away from each other. Each wanted their own formation. Sakura would want Naruto to fail so she could be with Sasuke, while Sasuke likely wouldn't care who he was with as long as he got a bell. He'd maybe even steal one if he didn't get it off Kakashi. Naruto had just decided he liked his new sensei. What a test to put newly graduated students through after mounting heaps of pressure. This would surely crack everyone's composure and test if they were worthy or not. Had he not been focused on his sensei, his words and actions, as well as watching his teammates at the same time, which he could only do so effectively thanks to his enhanced processing speed granted by the 6 eyes, he would be as lost and conflicted as his fellow teammates. Okay guys, come at me with intelligence and to kill, as I said, whether that be in direct combat or traps, do what you need to pass, you may begin. Naruto watched his teammates jump off intelligence the forest to conceal themselves, but doing so in different directions. He looked at Kakashi, who looked slightly amused at his presence, but he was hiding it well, having taken out a book to read. He's seriously good at mind games. He could have people wrapped around his finger in a fight just by feigning boredom. Oh, you're still here. Shouldn't you be off hiding yourself? Well, I don't think so. You have what I want. How does hiding help me take a bell? It just lets you stall and make this boring. Naruto replied. That's an intelligence-arresting way of looking at it. But I suppose you're not wrong, though I would have come looking for you. Kakashi seemed amused at the response. I think I'll indulge you with our first contact in this scenario, he continued. Lowering his book to his pouch, once more jingling the bells on their way, he stood loose waiting for an attack. Well, he's taking me perhaps a little more seriously than Sasuke or Sakura. Naruto looked around and spotted his teammates hiding places. At least they're watching. I'll fight for a bit before retreating to them, and then we'll build from there to achieve the main objective of Kakashi's test. That way they'll have seen the level of this fight and come to realize on their own the true purpose, or at least will be more receptive to the idea of working together when I bring it up. Well, no time to waste. I think I'll show off a little, yeah. My future team's watching after all. And with that, Naruto began his attack. Usually, Naruto was reactive in a fight, especially at the start, but that wouldn't work here with the difference in experience and level, plus Kakashi seemed to have no desire to start it himself. Perhaps he knows my preferred style and is forcing me out my comfort zone, though that's maybe just overthinking his laziness. Naruto clasped his hands together and vanished from his spot. Reappearing behind his target, he let loose a powerful kick aimed to Kakashi's right temple, but before it could connect, the elder ninja lowered his head to avoid the kick and spun around, aiming a punch to Naruto's midsection with no hesitation. Launching off his standing foot, Naruto avoided any contact easily and made a little distance again. Kakashi seemed a little put off by the speed he had shown off there. It was faster than usual thanks to the hand sign, but still it seemed the Jonin had followed him and reacted quickly enough. That was a little dangerous. If I had my book out, that might have actually caught me off guard. Kakashi seemed to stand taller, his easygoing persona shattering as he allowed himself to truly show of his physical stature. You're a dangerous kid, Uzumaki Naruto. Well, I do try my best. Shall we continue? As had happened last time, Kakashi felt his fist impact with Naruto. He watched the boy with his uncovered eye at full attention. He had briefly considered revealing the other one, but for one thing that would be embarrassing, he didn't even unveil that for some weaker jonin. To do it against a genin, or rather potential genin, would be ridiculous. But it would also force him to explain himself to another person here, and he had no desire for that if he might not even pass this team. The boy in front of him stood still. Even after the punch connected, he looked up. Intelligence O Kakashi's eye then simply took a step backwards. He was fine. He showed no pain, no injury, absolutely nothing. What the hell are you made of? I hit you really hard there, and you didn't even wince. You just took that on your stomach with no repercussions. No, that's impossible. Kakashi seriously needed to figure this out. This boy's potential was ridiculous. He was actually keeping up with him at what easily amounted to jonin level speeds. Naruto himself was beginning to move at speeds a boy his age would usually need a Sharingan to perceive. An evident ability granted by his eyes was either future sight or seriously advanced perception. Naruto was beginning to move and dodge at the same time Kakashi began to move to attack. He reacted instantly, acting almost as though he had minutes to choose the best course of action within a split second. He was able to keep up at that level and then return fire onto him. If Kakashi wasn't as durable as he is, those hits he took to allow him a surefire attack would have actually endurance at this fight. Naruto sighed. He was going to explain it anyway, but he hadn't wanted Kakashi to think he had to force him to. This just made the man suspicions of what he was hiding and why he was hiding it. Well, no, not quite. You didn't actually hit me. Naruto replied. Don't be ridiculous. I felt that. I know I landed that blow. Whatever. Here, come on over. Naruto stuck his hand out and waved Kakashi over to him. Come on, I'll show you. He continued waving his hand at the man. Deciding to humor the kid, Kakashi moved over to him and stuck his hand out. Attempting to place his hand on Naruto's, he was bewildered when his hand stopped a good inch before the kid's. Trying to push it further, he couldn't seem to move it any closer at all. Wah, I can't touch him, not even a little. Kakashi looked up from their hands at the boy. See, I told you, Naruto said, proving his earlier statement true. I have more than one hereditary ability. Well, I assume it's hereditary at least. This is Mukujin. Limitless. It's the basis for all the more physical abilities you've seen from me. The 6 eyes, as far as I can tell, are what's needed to truly utilize it, though. None of what I've done could be used without them, at least not how I do. The concentration and ability needed to use these is so great that without the eyes to match, it's likely none could be realistically used in combat. The enemy won't just stop and let you focus for a few seconds, will they? Okay, but how were you doing that? You said the ability was called Mukujin, and that it encompasses all your attacks, so how did you stop me? Or teleport? Was that how you pushed me away when you covered your hand from me? Kakashi seriously needed to hear this. He was so caught up he forgot he gave Naruto his hand, or rather wasn't expecting it to be used against him. I will tell you, but not just now, yeah. After all, you might not even be my sensei if we can't pass here. With that, he locked his hand with Kakashi's and made a move for the bells. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get more than a touch at them once again. Kakashi threw him away with enough force to tear apart the hold Naruto had. But before the fight could continue, Naruto warped away from the field and Intelligence O the trees, hoping that the fight was enough to have achieved his goal. To force his team together, having realized the impossibility of victory alone. Kakashi stood now alone in the field, contemplating the newly discovered factors surrounding Uzumaki Naruto. Seems like the kid may have already sussed me out. I did lay it a little heavy on them with pushing them together. But I assumed the tension would have still been effective at disrupting logical thinking and evaluation, enough to make it difficult at least. Kakashi wasn't so surprised actually. He already knew Naruto hadn't ever really shown off. Everyone who could think logically and disregard any bias they held against him could. But the extent of the abilities shown, and Naruto even claiming that they were the result of an inherent ability completely separate from the 6 eyes, was a shocker. Perhaps he set me up here. led me around by the nose. Not in a way to win the fight but to ensure he could get his teammates to comply with his theory about the pass criteria for my bell test. Ha ha ha. What a kid. Within the forest, Sasuke stood where he had set up camp at the start of the test. He had been setting up his traps when he heard some type of explosion and rushed over to watch the fight. He arrived back just in time to see Naruto appear behind their distrength acted instrength after having apparently sent him flying. He watched as the fight escalated after Kakashi appeared frustrated aided from the attempt. From his distance and angle he couldn't hear them or see in great detail, but he watched Kakashi approach Naruto and appear shocked by something after appearing to land a solid clean blow on the boy, moving at speeds that had Sasuke's jaw drop. After Naruto left, he watched Kakashi contemplate something before laughing to himself and then vanishing. Assuming the man was moving onto him and Sakura, Sasuke began to prepare himself. He checked up on his traps and supplies before lying in wait. After a minute or two he heard Sakura scream and assumed she had been taken out. Despite her annoyance he wanted to go see if she was okay but left it to Naruto who was likely to have some free time from the silver-haired Jonin after their fight. After waiting a few minutes, he finally spotted Kakashi. The man was crouched on a tree branch, seemingly inspecting one of his traps. Though he wasn't worried, he had laid out a few that were like red herrings. They were easy to spot and maneuver around, but doing so would lead you intelligence the path of another far superior trap. The idea was to allow the man to believe himself to be safe them spring on him and overwhelm him alongside a constant barrage of traps. Well, it's well made, that I can attest to. However, when your opponent is of a higher level and age than you, it's best to assume that their experience outmatches even well-made traps. It was a good idea, and it shows good behavior and understanding that you were busy during the time I gave you while fighting Naruto, but you'll need more than this to get a bell. With that said, Kakashi purposefully set off the trap, causing a chain reaction that led off the hidden one Sasuke hoped would catch him off guard. Someone else would and they would use it against him as he did today. For your future, we'll work on your ninjutsu arsenal, expand upon what you know and add to it, so you're not so limited in choice that you have to adapt a jutsu to fit a different circumstance. Sasuke seemed unhappy about things. He didn't have the best day but seemed to perk up at the endurance. The boy craved strength and expanding his knowledge of jutsu would do just that. Naruto. Kakashi sighed and wondered what to do about the revelations regarding him. Actually, follow me and we can report together. Kakashi thought that was the best choice. It would spare him having to explain to the Hokage secondhand, though Naruto looked entirely none too pleased about it. Perhaps the boy only showed off what he did to Kakashi himself and had no desire to tell the Hokage. It wasn't strengthically necessary to tell the Hokage your moves. The clans would surely riot, but if he asked you something, you normally did it. Well guys, that's all. You are now officially Zenin of Konoha. Congratulations Team 7. This is our training ground. Meet me here tomorrow at 9 AM and we'll discuss our schedule then. With that said, Kakashi placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and then moved them to the Hokage's office. The front door was beautifully carved wood and you certainly felt like you were walking intelligence somewhere almost sacred. After knocking, Kakashi received a "Come in" from beyond the door. The voice was aged and he knew exactly who it belonged to. The most powerful man in Konoha, the Hokage. He looked to Naruto and noticed the strength-eyed face. The boy was usually so carefree and apathetic. He hoped this was the right call. Opening the door, he guided Naruto intelligence the room where they seen it filled to the brim with Jonin, all reporting their team's success or failure. The Hokage looked to him and then Naruto and showed a little shock before once again facing him. Well, Kakashi, you're right on time. He spoke in a voice so aged but powerful. It commanded respect even after decades of gruesome choices and actions had weighed down on him. How did your test go? Something intelligence arresting happened. He spoke to Kakashi but clearly questioning the presence of the boy he brought with him. Hokage-sama, Kakashi said with a bow, showing the legendarance the respect he deserved. Team 7 under Jonin Hitaki Kakashi. He paused to build tension in the room. He heard Naruto sigh and almost felt the eye roll but didn't let it show on his face. After all, he was staring down the room with an intelligence-ense look. Past, he revealed with a light voice and smile in his closed eye. The room was in silence. Nobody wanted to be the one to breath and have him reveal it was a joke. But he never did, just kept smiling at them. No way. MMHHMM yes way, Kakashi answered. And we've got quite the story to tell, right Naruto? Now with all eyes on him, Naruto cursed his sensei. This was ridiculous. Yeah, just don't try vote to kill me this time, or I'll take it personally. Oh, Kakashi thought, maybe this wasn't a good idea. He laughed away the awkward silence in the room. Yeah, I'm going to hate this job. Future. Naruto considered the idea to lighten the burden he felt, but dropped it for now, instead focusing on how Kakashi was going to handle this. The man likely hadn't considered this idea much beyond bringing him here. Naruto smirked at his sensei. He would enjoy watching along as Kakashi attempted to resolve this. It would likely go up in flames and Naruto would be there to laugh at the man when it did. Not out of malice, of course, that would be cruel. Simply out of joy at seeing Kakashi mess up so badly. Well, not totally out of malice, at least, just a little bit. Well, Kakashi, what has happened for such an unprecedented situation to occur at this report? I'm sure you were aware of the time frame for this, yes? Naruto heard the Hokage ask. Surely something so important should be given center stage. Come, make your report, my boy. Kakashi already hated this job, and Naruto not so discreetly laughing at him wasn't helping things. The blonde looked like he wanted to show intelligence and make fun of him, but was oh so admirably holding back. TCH, stupid kid, he's just mad I threw him earlier. Kakashi cleared his throat to ease himself intelligence oh the uncomfortable situation. Hokage-sama, I have completed my test regarding the continuation of Team 7 consisting of Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura. I administered the bell test and after its conclusion have chosen to pass the team. Yes, you mentioned that. I'm thrilled you found a group who were able to prove themselves to you. I'm sure you'll make a fine teacher, my boy. Hiruzen replied, appreciating the official report and confirmation of the team's pass, but hoping to lead Kakashi onto the bigger topic. Thank you, Sandaime-sama. The reason for the rather unusual company for my report is due to some new information coming to light regarding his unique abilities. I thought you would like to know and assumed it was best to allow him to explain it himself so as to avoid misrepresenting some aspect of it. But perhaps it was a bad time. Kakashi in all honesty had forgot what time the others would have finished. He hadn't meant to have so many eyes on Naruto, a poor mistake that could lead to distrust. Perhaps the boy thought he was trying to pressure him Intelligence-O, revealing all his secrets and brought him Intelligence-O a room of Jonin and the Hokage to force his hand. He'd need to talk with him later, but for now he could help allow the blonde to escape with his cards still by his chest. I apologize, Sandaime-sama, please forgive Naruto's intelligence illusion and consider it my own. It was a lapse of judgment. Please allow him to return home, we have an early start tomorrow. He hoped he hadn't accidentally made the old man curious. He seriously hadn't thought this through. Hiruzen looked at Kakashi for a few moments before taking a draw of his pipe and agreeing to the request. But before Naruto could fully leave, he spoke up to him. Naruto, my boy, I'm glad you're opening up with your team. It is vital they understand your skills and moveset. You don't need to tell them how to perform any techniques, but it's also not good to hide them from your team. It will only cause problems and indecision when you are forced to either reveal something or suffer the consequences. Indecision, even for a second, can kill, maybe not you but a teammate. Hiruzen spoke, having deduced the reason for Kakashi's 180, from hoping to have Naruto explain whatever ability he showed off, to trying to smuggle him out without needing to. He understood Naruto's reservations about discussing his abilities. Naruto had made them painfully clear with his first words in the room. He hadn't forgotten the events following the initial reveal of his eyes, the votes to kill him, as he put it. But he needed the boy to understand that refusing to use those abilities in fear or suspicion of everyone would only cause problems. Weird headband that allowed tufts of it to fall through though the top while the rest was covered like a hat. He had swirl marks on his cheeks, not too dissimilar to the swirls on his shoulders, and wore a loose green jacket. Choji himself had intelligence arresting powers, the ability to increase his size and therefore power either in specific areas or over his whole body was perhaps much more one note in terms of use and strength ATEGY than his own powers or even his Nara friendrances were, but still a powerful ability. Lastly, Naruto turned his attention to Ino, who was just sitting down having been walking behind her two teammates, apparently none too pleased to be in their company. She was a pretty blonde, much like himself, with green eyes. She wore a purple top and matching skirt with bandages wrapped around her stomach, arms and legs. Her ability was intelligence arresting too, but better suited to psychological warfare and espionage than to direct battle. She was someone within his class he quite liked. She was fun and easy to annoy, but also quick-witted. She was very emotionally intelligence-elegant, a different type of smart to Shika and even Naruto himself to an extent. She understood people and wasn't afraid to use that to her advantage. She's someone I could get along with, good cop bad cop style. I'm the smart strength-ong and handsome one who solves all the mysteries, and she could be, well, maybe I don't need her to have fun, I'm enough on my own. Ho intelligence as she can make the rest of this day somewhat intelligence arresting. Considering your dismal face, Shika, I take it your team passed? Naruto asked while resting his head on his hand which was leaning on the windowsill. The addressed boy turned fully to him and let out a resigned sigh before answering. We did. Though I wisdom he didn't have us do that ridiculous obstacle course, the dark-haired boy grumbled. Choji picked up from his teammate. Asuma-sensei is nice though. He offered to pay for this meal and said he would meet us here after briefing the Hokage on the team. The boy spoke around a mouthful of beef. Oh, so you guys had to do an obstacle course, huh? That's intelligence arresting. It's quite different from the trial we went through, Naruto said to the table, though he continued in his thoughts. It seems each sensei had creative control over their own tests. They could test their potential team for any number of abilities and hidden potential just by tweaking their criteria. Kakashi wanted teamwork and so focused on that. This Asuma guy seemingly wanted to test mobility and quick thinking. It was a simple concept. Each sensei gets to test for aspects they most want in their teams. It means if you pass the test, the Chema strength Y with your team and sensei is likely to be at least passable for mission work. Sometimes the most effective strength ATEGY is the simplest. There's no need for grand schemes all the time. Naruto already knew that Kakashi had influenced the test they had faced, but it was intelligence arresting nonetheless to see how the other sensei approached it differently. For the first time since he arrived, Ino spoke up, breaking him from his thoughts. Different? Well, whatever, I just can't wait to go on some missions. Maybe we'll get to save a handsome prince, with dark hair and nice eyes. He'll fall madly in love with my beauty and, though she had started off talking to Naruto, she quickly lost intelligence arrest and fell intelligence over love story. Naruto only laughed at the girl, which drew her ire. What? She spat. Can't a girl dream without being laughed at? She cast a glare at Shikamaru, who although didn't laugh as brazenly as Naruto had, did let out a quiet, troublesome. It's not that, Ino. I don't think we're going to be doing anything like that for a while. The Nara supplied to distrength act Ino from his use of that word again. Though what he just said did catch Naruto's attention. Oh, now that is an intelligence arresting idea, my lazy frienderins. Why do you think that? Naruto gave a smirk but only leaned further back intelligence his hand and closed his eyes. Had he not been the one to ask the question, you would assume he was as unintelligence arrested as the Nara. Giving a sigh at having to talk so much and to someone as troublesome as Naruto, Shikamaru continued. It's just not logical. Sure, we're now officially genin and have a registered team, but we haven't had any time to train. It would be too risky to send naive and untested shinobi on missions that the village relies on for money. Firstly, it risks the village's reputation if they fail, and secondly, it risks future assets to the village. Losing a shinobi is a big hit, not only for profit but strength or upcoming shinobi serve as a deterrent of war. If Asuma-sensei or one of us were to get seriously hurt or killed because we weren't up to scratch, the village has a lot to lose both presently and in our potential future contributions. Finally finishing his speech, Shikamaru found himself leaning forward facing Naruto. His two teammates had been stunned intelligence brief silence, having never considered the implications of missions and their outcomes too deeply. But while he registered their looks and voices now whispering behind him, he was focused on the boy sitting casually opposite him. Naruto was someone he couldn't figure out. The boy acted so stupid, but there were flashes. Flashes of something far more serious and far more sinister hiding behind those eyes of his. Shikamaru wasn't totally convinced that Uzumaki Naruto was a good person. It felt like an act, but to what endurance? He watched and waited for the reaction of the boy opposite him. he was sure to get a quick look at least, at what lay beyond what Naruto allowed others to see. Naruto sat forward slowly and remained still for a second, but it felt like an hour to him. The tension was getting palpable, his hands beginning to sweat as he rubbed and fumbled with them. Then, "Aw man, you're totally right." Naruto shot up abruptly, looking panicked, eyes wide and hand running through his hair. "I can't believe I thought we would finally do something cool," he complained. He let out a sigh, looking for all the world like someone told him his pet just died. "Well, I'll see you guys some other time," he said, leaving with a rain cloud over his head and dragging his heels out the door. After a small disbelieving silence, Ino spoke once more. "Sai, what an idiot. I can't believe that guy is so strength-on. He's so immature, honestly. I thought he was going to say something intelligence arresting." Ino grumbled behind the Nara as she pouted her lips and kicked her feet together. "Well, Naruto has always been a bit unpredictable," the ever-kind Choji spoke, while once more reaching for some beef. Shikamaru, though, couldn't help but feel nervous. He had also thought Naruto was actually going to answer his speech with a serious response. He had been pulled in by his body language and presence, and was fully expecting anything but what Naruto had actually said. That had to be intelligence-entional. Was Naruto messing with him? Did he just go through all that to annoy him? Or was he actually looking to gain something, and if he left, did he gain whatever it was he was looking for? Resting back against the chair, the intelligence-elegant Nara watched Naruto wander away from the window. The blonde boy was still walking like someone shot him, bawling his eyes out and annoying the people nearby who looked as frustrated as he felt. With that, a ringing noise brought his attention behind him and to the door where Asuma was entering with a smile. "Man, this day cannot get any more troublesome," he thought with a mental sigh. Naruto, however, was having a blast, walking up to people and pretending to cry on their clothes and even blowing his nose on a man's sleeve. Having made enough of a scene, he stood up properly, gave the passing people a wink and smile before disappearing, leaving only his joyous laughter behind. After all, he had a big day tomorrow. Well, Shika sure is a smart kid, a little boring, but we can't all be perfect. Naruto considered the words the Nara had said. He had been sure there was more to come from his sensei and had come to a similar conclusion to his shadowy frienderance. It was unlikely that such green behind the ears shinobi would be given anything of relevance to do. They would contribute in other far less exciting ways. He liked the Nara though, smart, cautious and perceptive. A little too easy to deceive, but he would only get better with experience. Arriving inside his apartment after successfully wasting a little bit of the day, he sat by his desk and waited for the day to endurance.